Hey, and welcome to the Drive and Dish podcast. We got a big game with a lot of games to go over today. Let's start out with going over our games that we had yesterday on December the 7th. We had 3 picks. We went 1 and 2. We had a nice win with Wofford plus a 12.5. That was a good game. They really drained a lot of threes late that covered that spread, played a pretty good game. Richmond still looked good. Lipscomb, however, did not look good. They went to Southeast Missouri State and lost by 5 as 3.5-point favorites. They did not play well at all, and it looked like they just didn't have any juice for that game. I thought they'd come out a little better, and we had Loyola Marymount plus a 4.5. Santa Barbara got off to a hot start, and Loyola Marymount was never really able to close. So, not a great day on December the 7th, but it happens. We didn't have a lot of picks. We didn't love a lot of games. So let's get to today, December the 8th. Overall, we're 43-29-1 on the year, and today is going to determine a lot because we got a lot of picks today. So let's start out with Rutgers versus Syracuse. We like Rutgers minus the 4. Rutgers has gotten off to a 3-0 start, continuing their good play from last year. I just think they're a better team than Syracuse. This will be a tight game, but I think Rutgers is the better team here. Syracuse tends to get off to pretty slow starts. They're 3-0 right now, but their wins are sort of really down to the bottom of Bryant, Niagara, and Rider. And they struggled with Bryant, but dominated Niagara and Rider. But those are two of the worst teams in college basketball, and Bryant's not that much better. Rutgers has a really nice win versus Hofstra. Hofstra is going to be a pretty solid team, and then 2 really low-level wins in Sacred Heart and Fairleigh Dickerson. But we think Rutgers is going to be a good team. So minus a 4 for Rutgers. We're moving on to one of the big games of the day, Illinois versus Duke. We like Illinois plus the 3.5. We don't think Duke is all that great. Illinois, 3 real low-level wins versus A&T, Chicago State, but that Ohio win is actually looking pretty good. They look like a really good team this year. It should be fun to follow Ohio as we go on throughout the year, and their loss to Baylor was not pretty, but I really think Baylor and Gonzaga are a step above right now. Just a shame we didn't get to see that game this week. But Illinois plus the 3.5 versus Duke. We think Duke is down. We think this is plus because they're still factoring in some home court advantage. I don't think there'll really be any home court advantage going to Duke without fans in those stands. So Illinois, I think the better team, will come out on top. So they're getting points there. Pretty good. Nice little underdog there to take versus Duke. Next up, we have a twofer. We want Marquette versus Wisconsin Green Bay over the 147. We love Marquette playing overs with them. Their pace is just ridiculous. They're a little bit slowed down this year, but some of that could be for that Oklahoma State and Wisconsin game, which is, two sort of slow down teams. But versus Pine Bluff and Eastern Illinois, they've racked up the points, and they just play a fun, high-scoring style, and matched with Green Bay's style, who they've been awful this year, giving up 99, 82, and 93 points. And their pace also is a pretty high pace, about 3 points higher on the adjusted tempo rankings in KenPom. So we look for a pretty high-scoring game. Also with that, we're going to go with Marquette minus the 20.5. We just think Marquette will dominate this game and really light up the poor defense of Wisconsin Green Bay. Wisconsin beat them by 40. Minnesota beat them by 30. And they had a 2-point loss to Eastern Illinois. So they just don't really have the defense. And Marquette's better than both, I think, Wisconsin and Minnesota. So with 30 and 40-point wins, I think you're safe taking that big spread, plus the over of 147.5. And we're going to switch gears and go with Jackson State versus Mississippi State under the 132.5. You know Mississippi State plays the slow defensive style, and most of their games are played in the 50s and 60s with this poor Jackson State team here, who also does not really play a real high-tempo game. They're about average. This is their first game, so I think they'll struggle versus a Mississippi State team that's played 4 games in a row. I look for this to be about around in the low 70s for Mississippi State and in the 50s for Jackson State. And so that'll hit that 132.5 under. Moving on, Murray State versus Austin Peay. This should be a really good game. These two teams have had a long history of pretty solid basketball programs, Murray State being always the much better program, but I like Murray State here. I think they're a little undervalued at -3.5. I think they're much better than Austin Peay this year. Two sort of nondescript wins so far this year versus Illinois State and Greenville, and then a tough loss to Middle Tennessee. But that Middle Tennessee team is a really good team, so I don't really look at that too much. Austin Peay had a nice win over Nebraska Omaha. ETSU, they could only win by 1, and ETSU is just totally revamping their team. The loss to Abilene Christian, I think Murray State is a better team than Abilene Christian, and they lost by 8 there, so that should cover that number, and then they have a 0-0 win versus Carver. So I look for Murray State today to pull out a victory over Austin Peay, but a pretty good matchup there, but Murray State -3.5. Next, we're going to go with a little bit of an interesting game. I couldn't make myself take the spread of Mississippi Valley State versus Memphis. I really wanted to, but I think if it had gone under 40, I would have, but I'm going to ride the over here. Mississippi Valley State has just been atrocious on defense, and Memphis, who's played a real high aggressive pace, so I look for them to score a lot of points and run up the score here, and Mississippi Valley State has given up 142, 116, 97, 88, and 96. So I look for Memphis to hit that 100-point mark, and Mississippi Valley State has been able to get around the 60s for the most part, 62, 62, 61, 69. So if Memphis can hit that 100-point mark, I think Mississippi Valley State will do their job and get to the 60-point mark. And if we can get a 116 or a 142, that gives you a pretty nice leeway there with Memphis. So looking for the over, even though it's really high at 161.5. We just think that Mississippi Valley State has, with Memphis's pace, will be too many points there to not take that over there. Next up, we're going with a little bit of a hard one. Northern Kentucky plus the 12 versus Dayton. Dayton looks really good again this year. Northern Kentucky had a nice win versus Ball State to open the year, a mediocre win versus Tennessee Tech, and then a loss to Chattanooga, which is about where I put them, maybe a little less than Chattanooga, but I think they're right around that level. I think this matchup, I think Northern Kentucky will take it a little serious because it's a little bit of a close interstate rival. Not quite, but right there. So definitely look for Northern Kentucky to cover that 12-point spread versus Dayton. Dayton had a nice win versus Eastern Illinois, but didn't look great. And then a loss to SMU where they played a good game, but SMU just came out on top. So look for Northern Kentucky to come in there and try to spoil the party versus Dayton. Next up, we're going with North Carolina plus the 3. Another really good game in the Big Ten ACC matchup. We think North Carolina's bigs will match up well versus Luka Garza, so that plus 3 is really nice to have there. And I think overall North Carolina has the better talent if you take away Luka Garza, and I think he's a little negated with the big-time bigs of North Carolina. So that should be an interesting matchup to watch. Next up, we're going to Detroit plus the 3.5 versus Kent State. Really interesting game here. Detroit has played really well and gotten a couple hard luck losses, a close loss to Michigan State, a close loss to Notre Dame. They've been really tested. This is their first chance to really get a win here versus Kent State, who has played sort of mediocre. They played a tough game versus Virginia. They had a 0-0 win versus Point Park, but I think Detroit's a better team here. So I think you're getting a little value with the plus 3.5 versus Kent State. Next one, we're going really off the radar, and UMBC versus Delaware. We like UMBC getting that one versus Delaware. We think UMBC's definitely the better team here. Played a close game with Georgetown, dominated San Francisco and George Washington, and I think they're just the better team here. I think you're looking at a name like Delaware, who's had a better program overall, but really think UMBC's the better team here. So a lot of value in getting that plus point. You can't really judge anything for Delaware other than they played a real tight game versus a Division II program in Salem. So if you're going off that, I think UMBC's a play here for +1. And last, we'll go back to the ACC Big Ten Challenge in Miami, Florida, +2.5 versus Purdue. Miami, Florida has had two really big wins versus smaller town programs, but I think Miami, Florida bounces back with a pretty good season here, and I think they're a better team than Purdue. I think Purdue's a little overrated. We took them a couple times earlier in the year, one for a win versus Liberty, and then the other with a loss versus Clemson. So they have a couple other wins since then, Oakland and Valparaiso. The Valpo win is a decent one, but it was a tough game. So I think Miami of Florida has nice value there at +2.5. Be sure to follow all Greenlight Network's podcasts. Check out greenlightnetwork.org. We got a Football Time podcast, recap and review with Achilles Reign coming out later today on Facebook Live. That's our show, and we're out.